I'm 28 years old and my sister Rachel is 31. We've always had what I'd call a pretty normal sibling relationship. We weren't super close or anything, but we got along fine. Shared laughs at family gatherings, texted once in a while. Nothing out of the ordinary. Our dad's done well for himself. He owns a contracting company he built completely from scratch, and it's been thriving for years. Our mom passed away from cancer about 8 years ago. Since then, Dad's been talking more about his future. Around 6 months ago, he brought up updating his will. It wasn't some dramatic announcement. He just mentioned wanting to get his affairs in order and maybe set up a few trusts to make things smoother later on. Honestly, it made sense. He's in his early 60s, thinking about retirement and legacy planning like most people his age. Rachel and I are his only kids, so naturally, whatever he leaves behind would be split between us. But ever since that conversation, something in Rachel completely shifted. It's like she flipped a switch. She went from being my easygoing sister to someone I barely recognized. Cold, suspicious, almost hostile at times. She started throwing out weird comments about how I've always been different or how I don't quite fit in with the rest of the family. The first time she said something like that was during dinner at Dad's house. She was standing by the fireplace, looking through some old family photos on the mantel. Then she picked up this baby picture of just a wrinkly, red-faced newborn and stared at it way too long. Finally, she said, "You know, you don't really look like Mom or Dad in this picture." I laughed it off at first because all babies look like squishy potatoes, but she wouldn't let it go. "No, seriously," she said. "Look at your nose, your eyes. Where did those even come from?" Then she was comparing evidence. Dad was still in the kitchen and didn't hear any of this, but I could feel my stomach twisting. I told her she was acting weird, that genetics are messy, and plenty of kids don't look exactly like their parents. I tried to make light of it. I joked that maybe I got great-grandma's chin or Uncle Pete's eyes. Who knows? But Rachel just gave me this look, like she was silently accusing me of something. What's worse is that she started saying these things to other people in the family. At my cousin's birthday party last month, I overheard her telling our aunt that she's always felt something off about me. When she realized I was right behind her, she didn't even try to play it off, just shrugged and walked away like it was no big deal. Lately, she's been completely fixated on family genetics and inheritance. She's constantly bringing up stories about people who found out shocking things through DNA testing, kids discovering their real parents weren't who they thought, families being torn apart by genetic results. She even emailed me 3 different articles about each one about someone learning they were adopted or had a different biological father. She keeps saying things like DNA doesn't lie and science always reveals the truth. It's unsettling. Then, just last week, she cornered me at Dad's house and asked, dead serious, if I'd ever wondered about my biological parents. I froze. I had no idea what to even say. When I asked her what she meant, she went on about how I'm just so different from everyone else in the family, and how she's been thinking a lot about genetics lately. I tried to talk to Dad after. How do you even explain something like this without sounding... I told him Rachel seemed a little off lately, that she's been saying strange things. He said he'd noticed she'd been a bit more intense too, but he figured it was stress from work. The part that really messes with my head is how convinced she seemed. It doesn't feel like she's trying to cause drama. She genuinely believes there's some hidden truth about me that everyone's keeping from her. But here's the thing. I know without a doubt that Dad is my biological father. I've got his hands, his laugh, and that same habit of losing patience with things that don't work right. From Mom, I got her stubborn streak and her weird double-jointed thumbs. I resemble both of them in my own way, so now I'm starting to wonder if Rachel might be through some kind of mental health crisis. Still, the timing's hard to ignore. Her sudden suspicion started right when Dad began updating his will. Is it possible she's gotten so worked up about inheritance that she's convinced herself I'm not even her real brother? Or maybe this is some deep-seated reaction to Mom's death that's just now surfacing after all these years. I honestly don't know what to think anymore. Rachel's behavior keeps getting worse. She started mentioning DNA tests and uncovering the truth. Even when Dad's around, he just laughs it off. But I can tell he's starting to realize something. I'm at a total loss here. Any advice would be appreciated because I'm seriously confused. Update 1. Remember how I said Rachel got obsessed with DNA testing? Apparently, she decided to make it a full-blown fan activity. A few days after that first incident, she showed up at Dad's house with what she called her genealogy presentation. She'd printed out a bunch of articles about DNA testing, family trees, and genetic genealogy like she was giving a college lecture. Rachel pitched it. It was going to be this amazing family bonding experience, something that would bring everyone together to huge detailed tree. Honestly, her presentation was research inside and she compared different testing companies, analyzed their accuracy rates, and even looked into how big their genealogy databases were. She talked about connecting with distant relatives, tracing where our ancestors might have come from, and maybe even solving a few family mysteries about our great-great-grandparents. Dad was hooked right away. He's always been into family history, the kind of guy who gets lost for hours reading about where our last name originated. So, of course, this was right up his alley. Rachel knew exactly which buttons to press. She spoke about discovering historical figures we might be related to, or long-lost family members who had immigrated from Europe generations ago. But then the tone shifted, and that's when I started to feel uneasy. Rachel insisted that everyone had to take part for the project to work. She explained how DNA comparisons only really mattered if samples came from multiple. Then she emphasized that Dad and I were especially processed, since we were the direct. She made it sound perfectly reasonable, even scientific. She went on about how modern DNA testing had advanced so much that it could reveal incredible details about ancestry and genetic traits. She even threw in a few stories about families who discovered celebrity ancestors or found relatives they never knew existed. But the sneakiest part? She packaged the whole thing as a gift for Dad. She said she wanted to surprise him for his next birthday with this beautifully detailed family tree, complete with DNA analysis and historical research. She presented it like a heartfelt, sentimental gesture, a daughter honoring her father's love for family history. And Dad? He absolutely loved it. He said Mom would have been thrilled about something like this, that it would be wonderful to finally fill in the blanks in our family's story. Within minutes, he was all in. He started calling up relatives, telling them about this amazing project Rachel's organizing. Rachel played her role perfectly. She took control of everything, handled the logistics, ordered all the DNA kits, coordinated with family members, and declared herself the project manager. She even said she'd personally collect and ship all the samples herself to make sure everything's handled properly. Within a week, she had commitments from just about everyone. Dad, me, 2 of our aunts, 3 cousins, and Dad's elderly uncle. Everyone was on board and excited. Our aunt even started digging through old photo albums and documents to help with the research. But here's what nobody else seems to see. I know exactly what. She doesn't care about genealogy. She's not doing this to celebrate Dad's interests or honor Mom's memory. She's doing it because she's determined to prove that I'm not actually Dad's biological son. I can see her plan clear as day. She's convinced that when the results come back, mine will show I'm not related to anyone else. Instead of accusing me outright or confronting me one-on-one, she's wrapped the whole thing in this wholesome family project disguise. So she looks like the thoughtful, devoted daughter, and I look like the suspicious one if I refuse. If I say no to the DNA test, it'll seem like I have something to hide. But if I try to expose what she's doing, I'll come off as paranoid and defensive. She's boxed me in completely. My only real option is to go along with her plan and let the results prove her wrong. The worst part is how excited Dad's gotten about it all. He keeps calling me every few days with new discoveries Rachel's made about our ancestors, or some interesting historical fact. He has no clue that she's using his curiosity to try and disprove my place in this family, so now I'm just trying to remind myself that this will eventually blow up in her face. Once the results come back, she'll have to face reality, that I am Dad's son, no question about it. Maybe then she'll finally drop this insane obsession. Update 2. Since Rachel was the one organizing everything, all the DNA kits got shipped to her apartment. She texted our family group chat, saying everything had arrived, and that she'd be distributing the kits soon so everyone could send in their samples. She said she wanted to collect them all together and send them off as one batch, to make sure they get processed together, she said. I was supposed to stop by her place yesterday to pick up my kit, but a work thing came up last minute, so I texted her to reschedule. I told her I'd come by today instead. She replied that it was fine, and if she wasn't home, she'd leave my kit with her roommate. So this afternoon, I drove over to Rachel's apartment. Her roommate let me in, said Rachel was out running errands, but had left my test kit on the kitchen counter. When I got to Rachel's place, I noticed there were 2 DNA test kits sitting on the kitchen counter. I picked one up, figuring that must be mine, and was about to head out when something caught my eye. The box was already opened. That immediately felt off, because these kits are supposed to stay sealed until you're ready to spit into them. Out of curiosity, I lifted the lid just to make sure everything was inside, and that's when I froze. Inside the box, the saliva collection tube was already filled. For a few minutes, I just stood there staring at it, trying to process what I was looking at. The tube was supposed to be empty. I was supposed to spit into it myself, seal it, and send it off to the lab, but here it was, already used. At first, I thought maybe she'd accidentally given me someone else's finished kit. Maybe one of our relatives had dropped theirs off early, and Rachel just mixed up the boxes. But when I started looking through the paperwork that came with it, I saw my name printed on every single form. That's when it hit me like a punch to the gut. Rachel was planning to send in someone else's DNA, under my name. I grabbed my phone and called her immediately, demanding to know what the hell was going on with my test kit. She sounded confused at first, like she didn't understand what I meant. But when I explained that the tube already had saliva in it, and that the paperwork had my name on it, there was this long, uncomfortable silence. Then she started laughing. She said it was a joke, that she just wanted to test if I'd notice. She even claimed she was impressed that I caught it. According to her, she'd filled the tube herself as some kind of prank, and still had my real test kit waiting for me. I told her flat out that it wasn't funny. Tampering with DNA samples isn't a joke. It's fraud. She brushed it off, saying I was taking things too seriously and that it was all in good fun. But when I got home and sat with it for a while, my gut told me something was seriously wrong. So I called her again. This time, I demanded to know whose DNA was actually in that tube. She tried to dodge the question, laughed it off again, said I was being dramatic, but I kept pressing. Finally, she caved. She admitted that the saliva came from her friend Clara, a co-worker of hers. I've met Clara maybe twice, at some of Rachel's parties. She's got zero connection to our family. If Rachel had sent Clara's DNA under my name, the lab results would have shown that I'm not related to Dad, or to anyone else in the family. I asked Rachel point blank why she'd do something like that. Why would she try to send in someone else's DNA pretending it was mine? What was she trying to prove? That's when she dropped the joke act and got serious. She told me she just wanted to know the truth, that she was protecting Dad's interests. She said if I was really his biological son, then I shouldn't be afraid to take the test properly, but if I had something to hide, this would have exposed it. Her reasoning made zero sense. She honestly believed that sending in fake DNA under my name would somehow prove I wasn't related to the family. I tried explaining to her how insane that was, that if she submitted someone else's DNA, it would only prove that Clara wasn't related to us, not me. It wouldn't say a single thing about my actual genetics or my connection to Dad, but Rachel wasn't hearing a word of it. She was locked into her own version of reality, claiming my resistance to her plan just showed I was afraid of the truth. I told her fine, I'd take the test, but I was going to do it on my own terms. I said I wanted a brand new kit that she hadn't touched, and that I'd order it directly from the lab myself. That way, there'd be no tampering, no excuses, no games. That's when she completely lost it. She accused me of being paranoid, of sabotaging this beautiful family project she'd worked so hard on. She said everyone else was excited, and I was the only one ruining it. My trust issues. I shot back that she was the one acting suspicious, not me. She was the one who'd tried to fake a DNA test, but she kept deflecting, calling it a harmless prank, saying I was blowing everything out of proportion. When I told her I was going to tell Dad what she'd done, she hung up on. A few minutes later she texted me, begging me not to say anything. She promised she wouldn't touch my real sample if I just let it go, but I'm not letting this go, not this time. Rachel didn't just cross a line, she leaped over it. Submitting someone else's DNA under my name isn't a misunderstanding or a joke. It's deliberate deception. So I went online and ordered my own DNA, no middleman, no Rachel. I'll take my own sample, send it myself, and get results that no one can dispute. The results came in recently, and just as I knew they would, they confirmed everything. I am absolutely Dad's biological son, a perfect 50% genetic match with clear links with our aunts and cousins, and ancestry that lines up exactly with our family's history. Everything was exactly as expected. Proof, in black and white, that I belong. But Rachel's reaction to that proof, that's where things took a truly disturbing turn. I'm starting to wonder if this has gone way beyond jealousy or paranoia, because her behavior now feels like something else entirely. When the results came back, I felt this huge wave of relief wash over me. It wasn't that I'd ever doubted who I was, but finally seeing it confirmed in cold, scientific data felt validating. I honestly thought this would be the end of all the madness. I figured once Rachel saw the proof, she'd realize she'd gone too far, and maybe even apologize. So before sharing the news with everyone else, I decided to go straight to her first. I thought showing her privately might give her a chance to save face, to admit she'd made a mistake without embarrassing herself in front of the whole family. That was a mistake. When I handed Rachel the printed results, she stared at the papers for a solid minute without saying a word. Her eyes darted over the pages like she was looking for a loophole. Then she started in with the questions. Where did you order the kit from? Who handled it? Are you sure the lab didn't mix up the samples? Did anyone else touch the box before you mailed it? I told her calmly that I ordered it directly from the company's official site, took the sample myself, and even tracked the entire process to make sure there was no contamination or error. Everything was done properly. The results were 100% legitimate, but Rachel wouldn't accept it. She accused me of tampering with the results, said I must have somehow manipulated the test because, in her mind, I simply couldn't be Dad's biological child. She insisted she knew it deep down, and that the lab must have been tricked or swapped samples. When I asked what proof she had for any of this, she started listing nonsense. Apparently, I hold my fork differently than Dad. My laugh sounds forced around family. I try too hard to fit in, which in her mind means I don't really belong. It was absurd. She was twisting random, harmless behaviors into some kind of grand conspiracy theory about my birth, and then she took things even further. Rachel started telling everyone that the family should redo all the DNA tests, but this time at a different lab. She said she didn't trust the first company and wanted to verify the results with a second source. She's been calling relatives one by one, pitching it like some responsible, data-driven idea. She claims DNA tests can be reliable, that they should always be cross-checked between laboratories. The manipulative part is how she presents it. She's not telling him she thinks I'm adopted. She tried to submit fake DNA in my... Instead, she's acting like she's just being thorough, like a dedicated researcher who wants to make sure our family tree is built on verified source. Finds that completely reasonable. He has no clue what's really behind the scene. To him, being careful, so he agreed, encouraged. Rachel already ordered a new batch of kits from another company and is managing the whole process herself. Given her history, that worries me. But this time, I'm not taking any chances. When I give my sample, I'm making sure Dad is right there to witness it. I'll seal the kit in front of him and take a photo of it before it goes into the mail. A full chain of custody. The annoying part is that I already know how this is going to turn out. The results will match the first test exactly, because nothing has changed. I'm still Dad's son. But Rachel is so far gone that she's convinced a second lab will somehow reveal the truth she's desperate to prove. At this point, I genuinely think she's having some kind of mental breakdown centered around this obsession. She's built this entire narrative in her head and refuses to accept anything that contradicts it. Whenever reality pushes back, she just decides reality must be wrong. I've thought about telling Dad everything, about the sabotage, the fake saliva sample, all of it, but I'm scared he won't believe me. Rachel's behavior, at least on the surface, still looks methodical and reasonable. If I start talking about secret DNA tampering and conspiracy theories, I'm afraid I'll sound unhinged myself. So for now, I've decided to go through with this second round of testing. Let the results speak for themselves. When the new lab confirms, again, that I'm Dad's biological son, there'll be nowhere left for her to run from the truth. But honestly, this has gone far beyond a sibling rivalry or an inheritance dispute. I'm watching my sister spiral into something darker, something that feels like a genuine psychological crisis. She's completely fixated on proving that I don't belong in our family. Update 4. I finally told Dad everything, every single detail, and Rachel is officially out of my life. The entire situation exploded in ways I never could have predicted, but at least it's over. The second round of DNA tests came back identical to the first. Shocking, right? Turns out I'm still Dad's biological son, still related to every single one of our relatives. Same ancestry markers, same family connections, a perfect match all over again. The reports were practically carbon copies of the first set. I thought that would finally be enough. I thought that facing identical results from two completely independent labs would force Rachel to accept reality, but she didn't. Instead, she doubled down harder than ever, diving deep into internet rabbit holes about testing accuracy rates and laboratory contamination scandals. She started citing obscure reports about rare cases of DNA sample mix-ups, clinging to anything that might explain away the results, and that's when I realized she's too far gone. There's no proof in the world that will ever convince her. Rachel completely lost touch with reality after that second round of results. She started claiming that both labs must have made the exact same mistake, or that there was some mysterious contamination affecting only my samples. It was like she'd rather believe in a global DNA testing conspiracy than accept the obvious truth. But the real breaking point, she stopped keeping it private and started spreading it. Up until then, been careful, always dropping hints, subtle digs. But once the second test confirmed all doubt that I was Dad's biological son, it was like something in her snapped. She threw subtlety out the window. She actually called our cousin E and told him straight she didn't think. She claimed Dad was lying to himself, biological son, and asked E this time she would personally oversee. He said the whole conversation felt surreal, like talking to someone. So he called Dad and Mitchell was acting strange and saying disturbing things about me. That's when Dad, his voice was tense. "What's going on with your sister?" he asked. And at that point, I realized I couldn't keep this contained anymore. Rachel wasn't just whispering nonsense in corners anymore. She was involving the extended family. Dad deserved to know the truth about what had been happening, so I told him everything. Every weird comment, every accusation, every time she tried to make me look like an outsider. I told him how she twisted the genealogy project to fit her theory, how she tried to submit fake DNA under my name, and how she refused to accept any results that didn't match her narrative. Dad sat there listening in silence. When I finished, there was this long pause, and then he said quietly, "She's been trying to prove you're not my son." "Why on earth would she do that?" I told him I thought it all started after he mentioned updating his will, that maybe Rachel saw it as a threat to her inheritance, and decided to eliminate me from the picture by proving I wasn't biologically his. Dad didn't say much after, just that he needed to talk to her, immediately. That confrontation did not go well. He called Rachel to his house and asked her point blank if she'd been questioning my parentage and trying to prove I was adopted. At first, she denied everything, but when he brought up the DNA test tampering and her phone calls to relatives, she realized there was no way to lie her way out of it anymore. She broke down and admitted it, said she truly didn't believe I was his biological son, and that she'd been trying to protect him, exposing the truth. According to her, she was acting out of love, loyalty, and concern for his legacy. Dad asked her what possible evidence she even had, and she started repeating the same ridiculous stuff she'd told me, about how I hold my fork differently, or how my laugh sounds forced, or how some old childhood memories didn't line up in her head. He told her bluntly that her reasoning was insane. He said she was destroying her own brother's place in the family, based on pure delusion. He told her he was ashamed, that he couldn't believe how cruel and obsessed she'd become. That's when she completely broke down crying. She kept insisting the DNA labs were wrong, that Dad was being fooled, that she knew she was right, and the rest of us were blind. Then she begged him to do yet another test, one that she would personally verify, and that's when Dad finally snapped. He told her flat out that she was out of her mind, that her obsession with proving I wasn't his son had torn the family apart, and that he was done. He said he couldn't trust her anymore, not until she got professional help. He told her not to come around or contact either of us again until she sought therapy and dealt with whatever psychological issues had caused this behavior. Rachel stormed out that day and hasn't spoken to either of us since. She blocked my number and all my social media accounts. Dad says his calls go straight to voicemail now too, and his texts don't go through. She's completely cut us off. Afterward, Dad asked why I hadn't told him sooner. I told him honestly, I didn't want to blow up the family over what I thought was just a temporary lapse in judgment. I really believed she'd come to her senses eventually. He said he understood, but he was glad I finally did, because things could have gotten even worse if I hadn't stepped in when I did. Now, Dad's made it clear he won't have any contact with Rachel until she gets professional treatment. He's even told her, through other fans, that he'll pay for therapy himself if she's willing to get help. But until she acknowledges that this entire adoption was delusional, he doesn't want her anywhere near us. As for me, I'm done. I don't care if she goes to therapy, apologizes, or claims she's changed. I'm finished. She spent months trying to tear me away from my own family. She committed fraud by sending in fake DNA under my name. She spread lies to our relatives and tried to ruin my relationship with my father. Some things are just unforgivable. Dad's been rethinking his estate planning lately. He hasn't told me the details, but I can tell things have changed. He's made a few comments about how trust and loyalty mean more to him now than money ever could. I'm guessing Rachel's standing in the will isn't what it used to be. People keep telling me that if Rachel gets help, I should consider forgiving her, but I can't. I don't have it in me. She didn't just hurt me, she tried to erase me, and that's something I'll never be able to forget or forgive.